If you have a pop-up button that says accept recording, please hit that. And let me give you a couple more expectations from today. You are going to see people who are coming out of the war zone, right? They are first witnesses. They have been there themselves. Let's be mindful of the fact that they've just went through a very traumatic experience. It might be very difficult for them to talk, so whatever they can provide is good. I know that they don't mind talking to you, and yet because this is emotional, we gotta be very sensitive to that. Let me also just make sure that you understand the cultural differences, although it is customary for Americans to be polite and be like smiling sometimes just to show that you are listening. In this case, the smiles or any kind of positive show of emotions might be interpreted as not being sensitive. So just be aware of that. The people we're talking to today come from Kiev, Bucha, which is a little town on the side of Kiev that's been attacked very heavily. And there is one person from Mariupol. If you've heard what's going on there, it's a travesty. The Mariupol citizens are not being able to get out. They are being bombed heavily, and the town is in a very difficult situation right now. I did purposely ask them to start a little later so that we have a chance to talk about this beforehand. In terms of how you can help, this so far, I've been involved in multiple humanitarian organizations. They are collecting donations. They are providing everything from, well, we don't get involved in ammunition, but food, medicine, clothing. There's a huge need in Ukraine. We try to send packages there. And the problem is not just sending, the problem is delivering them to the people on the ground. Because of the fighting that's going on, it is very difficult to actually get the packages to the place where they're most needed. For example, people in Mariupol don't have basic food and water, and there's no way for them to get to it. I have multiple contacts in Kiev because I come from Kiev, and they need basic stuff. It's diapers, it's children's whatever, what is it called? Whatever things you need to take care of little kids. Those are the most demand. We've been collecting things, we've been sending them, and there are multiple foundations that are organized right now or kind of getting more organized than before because we're working together now that are making deliveries. I think when you talk to people in Ukraine and you ask, how we can help, 80% of them say spread the word. They want the world to know what's going on. They want everybody to hear their story. They believe that America as a big superpower can do much more than it is doing right now, and they're asking for help. I'm sure you've heard the pleas for closing the sky. That's the biggest plea, which is protecting the cities from being bombed. This is something that US did not agree to and is not agreeing to because they think that would result into escalating the conflict with Russia. Let's wait for another 5 minutes for people to join. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
Tatiana, can you just remind us of your personal connection and how you're connecting with the people who we're going to be speaking to in a few minutes?
Yeah. So I was born in Ukraine. I grew up there and went to school, went to college. One of the people who we're going to be talking to today, her name is Svetlana. She went to college with me. We were actually best friends in college. For 4 years, we're sitting at the same desk and studying the same subjects. We're still very good friends. And once the war started, we started calling each other much more often because I would literally check in on her every day and say, "How are you doing?" She managed to get to Poland within the first week, I believe, of the war starting. It was a difficult journey, and once she made it there, she was greeted by Polish volunteers who took care of her, the two kids that she brought with her, her dog and a cat. And they were welcomed. They were given a place to stay, food, and everything else. Svetlana was so amazed by the way they were taken care of that she decided not to go further. Her first plan was to go forward to another European country, but then she decided to stay in Poland. And now she is one of the volunteers helping other refugees. So while she's there, she has met a lot more people, and she's a teacher just like me, and she just knows a lot of people back in Ukraine, and she keeps talking to them. Some of them are still there, some of them are making it towards the uh, Polish border, and she's taking care of them. And the more she meets new people, the scarier the stories get. And eventually, when she was talking to me, she said, "The world needs to know. Let's get these people to speak and tell the stories to somebody who will actually publicize it." So I personally know Svetlana. She personally knows the other four people who we're going to be speaking to today.
Thank you. And can you just remind me where you live, just so we know?
Here in Boston, in Bedford, actually.
In Bedford. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just an average citizen. I'm an engineer working for iRobot, which you probably guessed because my Zoom says so. Yeah, I've been in US for close to 30 years, and I would consider myself more of an American at this point. And still, what's going on in Ukraine is very close to heart. I also have other relatives. I have a sister who was in Kiev. She and her husband cannot leave the country. After a few days of being bombed and being in a very difficult situation, they decided to send their 17-year-old son to safety. And he made a difficult trip by himself across the world, and he is now here with us in Massachusetts.
Wow. Would you, and obviously this is not the point of the call today, but in the future, would you think he would ever feel comfortable speaking with us?
He's very shy. I asked him, and he doesn't want to become famous because of this tragedy.
Okay.
I think as if just talking to him anonymously and just getting information firsthand, he would be open to, yes. Yeah, it's imagine 17-year-old boy just going through that. It's something. So my friend should be joining by now. Let me check in with her and make sure everything else is on track. That's not it. Oh, she doesn't have a link. Just a second. Okay, She's joining now. There we go. We've got. Hello. Hello and welcome. We have Svetlana joining us and Natalia.
This is
Hi.
Marina for now. Hello.
Hi, Marina. Hi, Natalia. I'm Tatiana. We have a couple of reporters from different stations. Why don't we go around and have them introduce themselves quickly, please? Rochelle, can you please go first?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Rochelle, and I am a reporter and producer with WERS 88.9 FM, and we're based out of downtown Boston.
Great. Christina?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Rex. I am a reporter for CBS in Boston, WBZ. We're also based out of Boston. Thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you, Christina. Is anybody at WHDH responding?
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, why don't we now go on the Ukraine side? Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from and how long have you been there? Natalia, can you go first, please?
Okay, so I'm Natalia Gaidey, and I'm from Ukraine, from Bucha exactly. And I was under the occupation for several days, and we stayed with my mom. We stayed in the cellar in the very center of Bucha for 14 days.
Okay. And where are you right now?
I'm staying in Düsseldorf in Germany.
In Germany. Got it. Okay, thank you. Lana, can you please introduce yourself? And Marina too.
Lana Sushko. I'm actually from Kiev. I decided to flee the country on the third day of the war. And now, right now, I'm in Poland, in Katowice, and I've been here for more than 3 weeks, I guess.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marina, and I'm also in Katowice right now in Poland for 4 days, maybe. I'm not sure exactly. And I'm from Mariupol. I've been under the occupation for 20 days, starting from the beginning of the war, the 24th, and we escaped on the 16th of March.
Wow. Lana, I know that there are scheduled 2 more people to join us. Do you know if they're coming?
Yeah, Natalia, do you know if Galina is coming?
I don't know exactly because we are staying in different cities.
Yeah,
And
all right. They were planning to join Galina and Anna. If you just give me a minute, I could go and contact them, okay?
I think that they,
yeah.
Oh, sure.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we give Natalia a stage and a few minutes to tell her the story? And while she's doing that, Lana, can you please try to contact the other 2 people? Okay. So can you please tell us a little bit about your experience and what it is that you can disclose?
Okay, so I will start from the very beginning that I felt some fear when I listened to Putin's speech when he made on the 21st of February. And only at that moment I understood that something was wrong, because before I just couldn't believe at all that it would ever happen. And again, I just 2 days later, I still, because ethnically I'm Russian and I have very deep and deep links, personal links with Russia, and my mother tongue is Russian. And I couldn't ever believe that the country I have these personal links to would invade the country I've been living all my life in. And I in the morning on the 24th of February, it was the worst morning in my life. And my mom just informed me. First, we, of course, like anyone, we were shocked and we didn't know what to do. We didn't have any savings of food in our fridges, nothing. And I'm just mom with for 2 children. They are teenagers, they are 17 and almost 19, and we were staying frustrated, didn't know what to do. And I live at the in Bucha, and I saw from my window, I saw people living Kiev. I live just at the highway from Kiev to Warsaw, and I saw a lot of cars leaving Kiev, and I didn't have any car and I didn't know what to do at all. Then we tried to concentrate and we tried to get focused, and we started thinking about some food to buy, and we went shopping to get some provision, to get some food. And on our way, it took around, it's about 1 kilometer from my place to the supermarket. And on my way with my children, I heard that something wrong was happening. We live 3 kilometers away from Gostomel airport. It's a strategic place, and it's a military point. And from the very first hours of the war, it was bombed. And we didn't know what to do. We were just in an open place. We didn't know what to do. We just continued our way to the supermarket. But when we stayed in the queue at the supermarket, there was a man, just he was riding his motorbike, and he just informed, he shouted that Gostomel is being bombed and there are a lot of helicopters, and the war started actually from the very beginning of that. Then we from my windows I could watch Gostomel bombing, and it was psychologically, it was very difficult to stay in my flat. That's why I live on the 9th floor, and it was very difficult to stay there. We moved to my mom's flat. She lives on the 2nd floor in the very center of Bucha. And they bombed all the day, actually. We heard that. And then we spent the first night. It turned out, because we were not prepared at all, it means that we didn't know anything about the bunkers. Yes, bunkers. And we didn't know about the bunkers, but it happened so that we met some neighbors of my mom's, and they said that there is a cellar and we could go and check about it. We just put 2 chairs into that cellar. These were the chairs that my mom just had on her balcony, and this was the only equipment that we could just put into that cellar. And the very first night we spent, because they were bombing, we heard that, and it was very scary for us because we were not get used to these sounds, and it was very close. And we went to that cellar. There were several dozens of people with young children. There was Wi-Fi, and we spent some time till the midnight there. Then we tried to get up to go upstairs to my mom's place. We stayed there for 15 minutes. Again, it repeated and again, and we just went downstairs. We spent all the night there, and in the morning it turned out that the bridges to Kiev, from Bucha to Kiev, they had been bombed and exploded. And my business partner, she is coming, I suppose that she is coming, my business partner and friend said that her friend was going to drive to the border, taking her younger daughter, and her older children live in Europe, and she was heading to them. And we just agreed that our children, who are teenagers again, 3 of them, she picked them up and they went with her. We stayed and wanted to decide what to do. We just decided that I would follow them, but it was too late because they managed to escape, but we were blocked in Bucha because Kadyrovsky tanks, they were arriving, and we just were blocked. We spent 14 days in Bucha, mostly in the cell, because it was scary. Every day we heard bombing, we heard missiles, the sounds of missiles. There were around 80 people. And we were lucky that our block of flat was just not very close to the highway, because all the fights were happening on the highway. And on the, I don't remember exactly, but on the second, third day, a lot of tanks appeared. They said, because we cannot estimate that correctly, because we had some pieces of information, but we didn't have, of course, and nobody probably has so far the whole information. And we heard different noises, and the block of flat that is next to the highway, it's the central road of the town. It was bombed many times, and once there was a tank shooting, and one flat was started to fire, and there were no fire engines because they were not working. There were a lot of calls to them, but they couldn't arrive, and several flats just burnt out, and we saw that. And there were a lot of families in the cell with young children. There were about 20 children in the cell staying, and we had provision. We had food only for 2-3 days, and then we had a very good team there. I mean that people demonstrated the best features, on the best features that they could ever demonstrate. And on some of the days, I don't remember because I couldn't count these days, and on some of the days, the supermarket next to our residential area was not exploded, but it just was opened by the Russian soldiers, because it turned out that they were hungry too, and they started stealing food from supermarkets too. And then they opened for the citizens, and our men who were staying with us in the cellar, they brought this food to us, so we were not starving. But those people who were far away from the center, they starved. They didn't have any food. On the first days of this war, there were people from the local defense, and they brought some bread to us. They knew that there were a lot of people in the cellars, and they brought some bread, some food, something very basic things, but later nobody. And I know that from the news at the very beginning we had electricity, and from the news we knew that the street 200 meters away from us, that street was completely destroyed because there was a big fight between Kadyrovsky tank troops and our soldiers. So there was a lot of different machines, and it lasted for 14 days that I stayed there. On some day, I cannot remember, but I could ask my those friends from the cellar. There was an electricity cut. We didn't have any electricity, no water, no electricity. Again, we had very good team, and so we had enough water in the cellar, but we were lucky in this sense because there were other people who stayed with no water, with no electricity, because the Russian troops, they had bombed the I don't know, tower, water tower, and something like that. And again, we were short of information. We tried to charge. We had some power banks. We tried to charge our phones, to get our phones charged. And sometimes there in the cellar I got, because there were some men, they had been to the army before, and they tried to calm us down, explaining that if not a missile, but if a bomb from the tank, I don't know how to say that, and if it shot the house, the block of flats, it cannot destroy the whole block of flats. And it was just something that I knew there, because before I had imagined that if some tank shot into the block of flats, we would just it would be destroyed, and we would just die under this block of flat, and it gave us some hope. But on some day we heard some planes, and it was another emotion, because planes are more dangerous in this sense. If they bomb, they destroy everything. Again, our men just calmed us down, saying that they won't waste these bombs for residential areas, because they have to bring these bombs to strategic objects. But again, from the news we heard about Kharkiv, about Mariupol, that they had been bombing residential areas. And we just tried to live with that. And then on the 14th day, we heard about evacuation, but it wasn't. We heard from the news about evacuation that Vereshchuk, it's the vice minister or minister, she said that there is a green corridor, so-called green or humanitarian corridor. And we tried to understand because we heard some shootings and some missiles, and we tried to get all the information together to understand. And besides, I had a phone, and many of us just had some phone numbers from volunteers, but this information was rather controversial. And besides, we didn't have mobile connection that would work correctly, because mobile connection wasn't working. Or when we start talking about evacuation, using some words like tanks or missiles or something like bombing, it was just disconnected and you couldn't call back again, because as our man again explained that they have special equipment if they just catch some words like that, or that they just don't let that connection. And then we heard some information about the evacuation. There were a lot of cars on the highway, and we could see it from our place through the arc that there were a lot of cars, but still they were shooting, and we didn't have the exact information. That we were afraid of taking risk. And then what we saw, that while we were staying, and there were children and their mothers, of course, they tried to take them for walks, because they had to breathe in the cellar. The temperature was +10, not more. And of course, it wasn't very good for children to stay all the time in the darkness under these temperatures and those conditions. And sometimes they took them for walks, and we just went out for walks, but not far away from the cellar. And there was such information that there would be some buses from Stoyanka to Bucha, and that was the main idea of the evacuation. And we just thought that ideally there would be Red Cross that would accompany these buses, and they would just be at the head of this column. And but it wasn't like that. And I called to the volunteer. I had a number, and she said, you just will take a risk, but you can follow that column of the cars, but it'll be just on your risk. And we had enough food, and I'm in my late 40s, so I didn't want to take a risk, and there were 3 more families, and we would stay there for longer, waiting for for more ideal situation for the evacuation. And there were younger families. When they heard the information, they had such information that only women and children could be evacuated, and men would stay there in Bucha. And they decided to take a risk, because they didn't want to be separated with their families, and they just jumped into their cars and they left. And we couldn't get through to them, because against the mobile phones, they didn't work. The mobile connection didn't work. And first they left, and there appeared a column of Russian soldiers, and at the head of that column there was a tank. And the next building to the residential area where we were staying, there was an office of territorial defense. And this office was just a very small office, and it was on the first floor of a 5-floored building, block of flats. And that block of flats was rather old. It was about 50-60 years. And they just shot this office of territorial defense. They shot out of from the tank, and the fire started. And a lot of people who were in their retirement age, they were aged 60 and 70 and more, and they just were leaving the block of flats, just watching how their block of flat was firing. And we were staying in the yard, and we couldn't breathe anymore, because there was a smoke in the yard, and we could do nothing but just jump into our cars and left the yard. We just while we were leaving, we were going through this smoke, and that smoke was very big. It was very huge. It covered it covered the place between my mom's block of flats and mine, and it's about 1 kilometer. It was of and it was very, I was very calm. I tried to be very calm, and I tried to get focused because I was driving and there were other people in the car, my mom and 2 more people. And this wasn't my car. My ex-husband just gave it to me, had given it to me on the very first day of the war. And I had driven only 1 kilometer approximately in that car. I didn't know all the technical details, and it was very old, and I was afraid of it, to be honest. And we were leaving Bucha, and I was afraid of watching what had happened because the road had been destroyed. Bucha was under the ash, literally, and there were a lot of flats that had been burnt down, and I tried not to look there. There were still shootings behind my back. I was the last in the column. The column of those cars was very long, maybe 10 kilometers length. And on the very, from the very beginning, we saw a car, and it had been, the Russians, when we saw them, they shouted at us. They told us just to keep our hands up, and they had told us to write, to make just tables, to make some pieces of papers and to write on them children. And then they asked us to tie some white stripes we just made of something, I don't remember. And when we saw the very first car on our that was shot down, it was just a very small car, kind of Getz or something like that, and it was shot down, and it was shot through it, and probably there were dead bodies burned down again, because I tried to look forward, not to, because I tried to be calm and I tried to be concentrated. And on that car there were just pieces of paper, just tables with these handmade children, and it didn't help, And on our way, while I was driving, I saw about 10-15 cars approximately, I don't know exactly, belong to the civilians, and they were shot down, those cars, and probably with dead bodies inside, because, of course, because they couldn't escape from those cars, of course. And there were 3 Russian block posts on our way, and while we were driving, I saw Irpin. We were passing, it was at the distance, and there were high block of flats, and there were some flats burnt down again by the missiles. And they stopped us, they checked, they tried to be polite. And then we saw, after the first block post, we saw several tanks. They were not tanks, but there was a boy in my car, and he said that they were not BTR, but BMP, big tanks. And behind me there was one more car, and behind that car there were approximately 10 up to 20 cars, other cars. They had joined us, and they stopped the car behind me. They just we saw those tanks just heading to us. They were getting closer to us, and then they stopped and tried to covering or trying to hide behind our backs. I don't know how to say that. In 5 minutes, we heard those tanks bombing or shooting Irpin, just behind our backs. It means that they were hiding behind our backs, behind this column of the cars. And then we saw some rockets, some signal rockets in the sky, and I was ready to die, to be honest, while having seen those shot down cars. I was ready to die, but luckily we had 3 block posts of Russians. Then there was a neutral territory. We were driving on Zhytomyr highway. Again, it was under the ash. Everything was destroyed and everything was under ash. And there was a strong smell of smoke. And there was a neutral territory between the Russian block posts and the Ukrainian block posts. And then we saw our Ukrainian soldiers, and it was very emotional. We heard our speech, and we saw our soldiers. And then we got to the place. There were a lot of volunteers. They were very helpful. They were given everything people just need, just warm food, what else, just everything. And then we had a night in Kiev and Belogorodka, and sleeping on just a bare floor. My mom is 70 and she slept on that bare floor too. And there were a lot of teenagers with us and children. We spent one night there, and then we moved to Khmelnytsky. We were met by volunteers in Khmelnytsky. They gave us food. They helped us a lot. They gave us a shelter. There were 30 people with me because the volunteer that we moved to, I knew him in person, and he helped us. And there were 30 people with me. They didn't know where to go because they had nobody in the west of Ukraine, and they didn't know where to go. And there was a church on our way, and they gave us a shelter. It was a Catholic Polish church. They gave us a shelter. We spent a night. We had a shower finally. We could eat warm food, and that's it. And then I headed to Poland to my children. My children had been staying with my friend. She had given a shelter to them, and then we stayed there. Polish people just helped us a lot. They just are so helpful. My friend is a teacher of English in Poland. She's my college friend, and schools in Poland became just centers of help to Ukrainians, and to the Ukrainian children. And I just watched what I watched there, that teachers, I was in my car with my friend, and she had a call from her colleague, and I could hear that. And just a Polish teacher called, there are a lot of refugees in the center where they are staying, and they are staying with their children. Probably we would just arrange some master classes, something like that. They are very caring, those people in Poland, and we felt that love. And then my college friend, she said that it's because my children, my son is 17 and he is finishing school and we don't know what to do further. And she said, probably you should move to another country because Poland is being filled with refugees, and we are going to have a humanitarian crisis now, and it's better to move to more developed country because Polish help is based on the help of volunteers mostly. And I tried to find someone who would support us in another country, and I'm very lucky just to move to Germany now, and we are staying in a very good family, and all the neighbors around, they already came to visit us, and the very first day we got flowers, we got a cake, and they are very welcoming and very caring. That's the story.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I understand it's very hard for you to recount those events, but we really appreciate you telling your story. Thank you.
Probably I was rather emotional, but still yes, it works like that.
Yeah, and we're glad you're in safety now.
Thank you.
We are ready to hear another story. Would somebody, oh, by the way, there were two more people who joined while Natalia was speaking. I didn't want to interrupt. Would you like to introduce yourself? Galina, can you go first, please?
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to this meeting. And my colleagues, I ask you to help me, okay? If I couldn't, if I will be not able to say something, because it's really difficult to tell now. So we left Bucha on 16th day of the war, and all this time we were living in our house. We had a house. I don't know, do we have it now? We lived there with my husband and with my young son, and the second day of the war, my little son, my youngest son, and Natalia's children, we sent them to the west of Ukraine. We hid all this day in our bathroom. It was really scary because we have had the sounds of explosion, the sounds of shots every time, at night, by day. And I was glad that our son was not with us. It was lucky that we had the well, and we could make fire in front of our house, because on the third day of the war, it was not light, it was not electricity, it was not mobile connection, it was not gas or heating, it was not water, it was not anything. So we took water from the well, we gave it to our neighbors, to our friends, and we made food on the fire. At first we were not going to left our house, because everything was with us. It was food, it was enough of food, because if to be honest, I felt that something terrible will happen. I don't know why, maybe because lots of time we were had about this. So every morning at 10 o'clock, our friend came to us from another part of Bucha, and it was the part where the Russian soldiers organized the штаб, девочки, как будет штаб? The main point of them, and they did it in the kindergarten. And when they came to Bucha, they left tanks, they left BTR under the private houses, under the apartment houses, next to civilian people, next to kindergartens of schools. So you understood why they did it. So we were not going to left our house because, and we were going to meet Victory there. And every day when our friend came to us and he asked us, maybe it's time to go away. We said, no, we will meet. We will wait for the Victory. We will be here. It's our house. It's our town. It's our country. Why do we need to leave it? So, and it was 16th day, and this day when my friends, I know that they were leaving Bucha because sometimes somebody told us about the friends, about neighbors. My parents lived in apartment house, and this apartment house is near my private house. It's about maybe 100 or 200 meters. My mom is 71 and my dad is 81. They are rather old. All this time they were hidden under the house, under the apartment house, and when they didn't have gas, electricity, they cooked food, breakfast, or maybe, no, not breakfast, not dinner, because we ate only one time a day. They cooked all together with the neighbors in front of the house. And 16th day was like deadline for us, because our friend came to us and he said, no, it's not impossible to stay here and we need to go away. I wanted to say that my colleague Anya, she's here too, and my colleague and my business partner Natalia. Natasha called me when it was possible, but there was no connection, and Anya's husband helped us with the food. He gave us some food. Maybe it was nearer to 16th day. We left Bucha on 11th of March, and one of our friends put us into his car, and we moved into Kyiv. It was a terrible way, like Natasha told, with all these sides of the war. So now we are here in Kyiv, I with my older son and with husband and with my parents, with my dog, with 3 cats, and now we are helping here in Kyiv. Now I'm not going to leave Ukraine and to leave Kyiv, because because it's my country, it's my town, and I feel that I cannot stay my man, husband and son. That's why I try to be useful here. Okay, that's all. Maybe it's all my story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for telling your story, Galina. Спасибо большое. I understand it's very difficult. Who would like to talk next? Anna, would you like to tell us your story?
Hello, everybody. I'm not sure about internet connection. Can you hear me well? Because I can hear well,
Yes.
but I can't. Yeah?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear and see you very well.
Super. I'm very glad to see my friends and colleagues because it is the first time after the beginning of the war when I can see these wonderful, amazing ladies. You know, if we had another topic of our meeting, I could tell lots about these people and what role they played in my life. And I would like to start with saying the words of gratitude to them, first of all, for being in my life, for being friends at this difficult period. All Galina's and Natalia's stories, they are full of details. And maybe I could repeat all these details, but I'd like to add some information, some bright spots from my story to make it fuller, this picture of this terrible moment of my country. My story started in 2014. I lived in Lugansk, and my children were born in Lugansk, and we had everything there. We had a flat, we had jobs, my parents, my family, everything was there. But when Putin came there with his army, and when he started his invasion from there, we decided that it's not our way to stay there, and we left Lugansk region, we left Donbass. We have decided that the heart of our country, Kyiv, is the best place to start a new life and to give happy childhood and successful future for our children there, because nothing and nobody and nothing can stop our happiness, our development. So we came to Bucha. The first period of my life there, I repeated every minute, thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody who was that, and I thanked for everything, for giving me clothes, for giving me opportunity to work, for giving me the chance to develop, to make career, and I always repeated, thank you very much. And I'm a teacher. I worked in the school, and I was a class head teacher of the class of the teenagers. They are in the 8th form, and we organized once a meeting with our soldier. He was in ATO, and he came to us after being injured. He came to us to tell his story, and he now been kicked out of your house, being kicked out of your homeland. And they said, I'm okay, I'm really proud to be in this strong and brave people. And that was the truth. And then the 24th of February came. and it was like deja vu in my life, because my morning started with the words, "Wake up, war has started again." And I opened my eyes and I understood that it's another moment when I have to start my life again. 1 month ago, we bought a new house, a new apartment. Now I have nothing again. But it's that I'm very rich person now, because I've got 2 flats now, one in Lugansk and one in Bucha. And I believe in victory. I believe that everything will be okay. I believe in our future meeting. And one more moment about Russian soldiers. When I listened to Natalia's story, I was surprised, and I agree, not surprised, but I agreed with her that Russian soldiers, they were very polite. And when my husband raised his hands above the car wheel, to show that he is not aggressive, that he is ready to listen to them, one of the soldiers said that, don't do that, don't raise your hands, we are not fascists. We are not fascists, he said. And I tried not to look into his eyes. Just don't give him the chance to read who is he in my eyes, because he would understand who is he. That is my story. I am in German now with my 2 children, with a cat. Yes, and we are looking for another chance to start our life. I believe that we will cope. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. I can't imagine how it feels to be going to the experience again. Marina, would you like to speak now? Okay.
Yes. Again, hello everybody. And you know, I think my story will be quite similar to the stories that we heard. I'm sorry if I'm making some mistakes because I'm a little bit nervous. And I would like to start that I'm from Mariupol, and maybe you've heard about this city. It was, you know, in 2014, it was the first city in the eastern part of Ukraine that Putin couldn't take. And I believe now he is making his revenge. Because in 2014, Mariupol was the first city who was defended by, it was not army, you know? We didn't have army in 2014 because Yanukovych did everything to destroy the army. And when the war started, Russian people say that it was civil war, but it was the real war, just hidden. And my friends, people from Mariupol, Donetsk, Lugansk, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Zaporizhia, doctors, lawyers, I don't know, businessmen, people who had their life, their work, they dropped, like they left everything and they started to defend our city. In this way, Azov was created. And you know, Azov is the part of our army, and they were the guys, very cool and patriotic ones. Russia says that they are Nazis, but they are not. I'm sorry, the dog in here. Just a second, please.
Ярик, заведи, пожалуйста, собаку на балкон.
So, and all these guys, they defended the city in 2014, and you know, all these 8 years, we had a wonderful life in my city, in my Ukrainian city. I had a good job. It was based in Kyiv, by the way, but I was working online, so I had a lot of opportunities. I had a good flat. My mom had a good flat. We had a beautiful city, and I traveled a lot, so everything was okay. And then, you know, my day started on the 24th of February. It didn't finish. And we knew, of course, we knew that something was going on to happen. And there was this spirit of war. Yeah, everybody told that on TV and people were talking about that. But to be honest, we thought that it would be like in 2014 or 2015, because we knew what is war, and it was always on the outskirts of our city. So we really thought that the biggest threat is that Putin just will take our city. So we were willing to show the whole world that Mariupol is Ukraine, that people in Mariupol want to live in Ukraine. And we even organized a meeting, peaceful meeting, patriotic one, on the 22nd of February. I was attending it. Russia said that people were paid, but no, nobody paid me. It was my wish to go there, and wish of my family, wish of my friends. And now we understand that we were very naive, that we could just stop him telling that we want to live in Ukraine. On the 24th of February, I was woken up by the call of my mom, who told me that the war has started again. The Kyiv has been bombed. It's like in the sun. And that's it. We didn't leave the city at first because we were sure that Azov will defend us, and that the war will be only out on the outskirts, of our city. So I was living in the city center, and I was sure that it's the safest place, the city center. It's not like the parts that were built before. And we were close to the motorway that was leading us to Ukraine. So we thought that, okay, if something bad was happening, we would just find the way to go away. But it was not like that. There was an opportunity to leave the city by train only 2 days, first 2 days. And we don't have a car, and we didn't have a car. So the train was the only opportunity for us. But as I said, we decided to stay. We were sure that it would be not like that. Starting from the 26th or 27th, I'm not sure exactly, there was no opportunity to leave the city. If you don't have a car, even if you had a car, it was difficult, but people managed to do that. We were living, my son and my mom had woke up on the 21st of century. He was at her place, I was at my place. So at first we stayed like that. Starting from the 27th of February, nothing worked. I mean, no pharmacy, no shops, nothing. On the 28th, it was the first time when the electricity went off, and we didn't have electricity, and we didn't have mobile connection. This was the first day, approximately 24 hours without connection. And on the 1st of March, I understood that it's impossible to live not knowing what is going on with my mom and my son. So I went to them, and we had a light like for, I don't know, several hours. And then the electricity was off again for always, for that time. It was the 2nd of March. Starting from the 2nd of March, we didn't have any connection, any mobile connection. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have heating. By the way, the heating was off like earlier, but it was not very important. We didn't have any water. At first, we had a gas, by the way, till the 6th of March, if I'm not mistaken, we had a gas. So at first we could cook some food. And we didn't have a lot of food, I mean, savings for food, because in 2014 and 2015, we could buy everything. So we thought that it would be like that. We were living like that for 16 days. I left my city on the 16th of March. And these were the days of the hell, to be honest. Because, when you're there, sometimes you think that this is the worst and it can't be anything worse than that. And the next day shows you that it can. And it's like the next day and the next day and the next day again, and it's worse and worse and worse. And at first it was kind of, you know, this war taught us some things like that plus 13 in your flat, it's warm, really warm. Plus 8, it's okay. It's a little bit cold, but it's okay. But for most of the time, the temperature in my flat, in my mother's flat, was plus 1, and we had to live like that. The food and the water was a real problem. The water was the real problem because there was no opportunity to take it. The food was not such a problem because you see, there were some, I believe the district where I was the kind of luckiest one, because if I can say that, because there were a lot of shops, big shops close to that place, and all the time when they were like bombed or just windows were smashed or something like that, people had to go there and steal food. There was no other choice, and even if you don't understand how to steal, you will do that because you need to eat. The first 2 times, the first 2 shops, I didn't go there because it was not like, I couldn't imagine me doing that. But the 3rd shop, I had to do it because my son needed something to eat. And you see, it's like some things that I can tell you about food, water, but all this time there were bombs and shellings. There was no pause. The pause was like maybe for an hour or 2. The 4 hours without shellings, it was like the biggest time period, you know. And at first, till the 10th of March, it was a little bit easier because we could understand who was shooting. I mean, we knew where there were the positions of our army, and we knew where there were the positions of Russian army. And we knew that when our army was shooting, we are kind of safe and we can, I don't know, find a place to hide, because after that Russian army will shoot till, and when Russian army was shooting, it was definitely for like, they say they were shooting only in military objects, but it was totally like, it was not true at all. It's like the only example from my side, you know, my window, I could see the house on the east from my window, from my kitchen window, and I knew that on the northwest there was Russians, and on their southwest it was Ukrainian army, and it's understandable. I mean, it should be like that. They should shoot to each other, yeah. But it's like behind my back right now. But here it's Russian army, and here it's the house that I saw, and this house had 6 bombs like this for 3 days. You know, they were bombed the one house. There was no soldier in there, no military units, only houses, only school and the houses. And I remember the day staying, it was evening, there were 3 bombs that were in that house, in one flat, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 2, and it began to fire. And you see, the problem was that you can't call anybody. You can't call the fire alarm, I don't know, you can call the ambulance, the police, because you don't have any connection. And there was a curfew, so you can't go outside, and you don't have any water. You can't help these people. Some men, they didn't think about this curfew. They took their car and went to the fire station to tell the people that we need to do something with that house, you see. And fire brigade, they came, they tried to help. The next day, Russian army bombed that fire brigade. I mean, that fire station, and we didn't have any help. And I remember that people said that there was the smell of fire, yeah. But in my city, I didn't hear the smell of fire. But always the one smell that I heard, that I could feel, it was the smell of gunpowder. It's some specific smell that you just, I don't know, it was everywhere. I opened the windows of the flat and all the flat was with this smell. Every day it became worse and worse and worse. All the houses were burned. All the houses were without windows. My house, no, the house of my mom, it was the luckiest one, I believe, because we just didn't have windows, and the doors that were inside the house, they were broken. That's it. But it didn't have any bombs or damages like inside the house. Dead people were everywhere. I mean, you just go outside and you see dead people lying on the streets, and nobody could take them. There was no place to take them. There were some dead people who were buried on the stadium close to my house, just the people from my place. I mean, people who were living there, they took some equipment and they buried them. When you go somewhere, I mean, you don't go, you run, and if you need something, you see that people, and it's the kind of egoistic thing to say, but all the time when you see them, you feel relief that you don't know them, that it's somebody who is not your friend or relatives or something like that. The water was also the problem because we didn't have any, and some days we were lucky, there was snowing, it was snowing and we could gather the snow and it became water after that, but we also needed some. And close to that place there was a river, small river, and there was a kind of stream, I don't know, we could take some water from there, but to go there you needed to like move a lot. And I remember we went there with my neighbors who were men and my mom, and there was at first there were the shootings were always, but at first these shootings were not very, very close to us. And when we found the water, when we were going to return back, there was a kind of ditch, maybe, I don't know, and it was the kind of safe place. We could lie there. We were crawling because all the bombs, all the missiles were like flying like this, like, I mean, above our heads, and we were crawling like that in the ditch. It was okay because it was kind of safe, but then we had like maybe 300 meters to run on the plain area where there were no place to hide. And I remember my neighbor, he always cried like us, ordered us to lie. And that was the day that I remember, because the day I lost my mom, I mean, for several minutes I thought that I lost her, because they were shooting and she was not running so fast as we did. And I remember I looked back, I saw her lying next to the gates, and then we went into some shelter, and I didn't see her. I thought that she just ran to home, but then when we went there, she was not there, and I was trying to find her. It was maybe 20 minutes or half an hour, I don't remember, but I really thought that I couldn't find her. Hopefully she found another shelter and she was hiding in there. Everything is okay, she's with me right now. But this time when you think that you lose someone who you love, I can't tell what is the feeling. And starting from the 10th of March, Russian army, I think it was 10, maybe 9, something like that. Russian army came into the city, and all the shootings All the shellings were everywhere. All the city was damaged. There is no like not destroyed building, house or place. Everything is under the ash. And the city center, now I look at some photos from the city center, I can't even like recognize the place because nothing survived. And the worst thing was this aviation, the planes. At first, they came like every 3 or 4 hours, and you hear it and you pray. I don't know, you just hope that you will not be bombed. Then these planes came like every 30 minutes, then every 15. And you hear the sound of this plane and you hear the sound of the bomb that it dropped. And again, you're happy that it's not you. And again, it's a egoistic thing to think because somebody else dies all the time. And after that, at first you are just scary about everything. You want to escape, you want to survive. But then day after day, your thoughts, they are changing. And after that, you just think that you agree to die. But like it was with me. I mean, I was ready to die, but my only wish was to be dead at once, not to be wounded, or not to become disabled, and to die the first from the family, not to feel the feelings, we tried to escape from the city like 3 times. Russian army didn't allow us to do that. They began shooting and we had to come back. We were lucky because, as I told you before, we didn't have any car. And you're desperate. If you don't have any car, you can't leave the city. We were lucky because my mom had a new neighbor. He was a man with a car and he didn't have any family in my city. So he had room for us in that car. Every day, I and he were trying to find out some information because the problem is that you don't have any information. Nobody tells you anything. Only if you see some Ukrainian soldiers, you can ask them for something and they will tell you the situation, because we didn't have any connection, television, radio. By the way, we had radio, but it was Russian radio. And we heard their news. And they were very persuasive, telling us that they don't bomb any civilian places. So I had to believe that I was blind and all the people who were dead, they are not dead, according to their news. So every day with that man, we were trying to find the answers. And you see, on the 16th of March, we were lucky because we saw 2 women and they said that there were some cars with white stripes and with these papers saying children trying to escape. And we just jumped into the car and tried to escape with them. And now I understand that it was the luckiest day of us because you see the column, it was not the organized humanitarian corridor because Russian army didn't allow any humanitarian help from Ukraine. Ukrainian humanitarian buses, they were standing close to Berdyansk, trying to come into the city, but Russian army didn't allow that. And on that column that we made, I mean, just people made, cars made, the first part of that column, I found out it later, it had been bombed. And the people after us were also, some of them died. And, but as I told you before, there were some shops that were bombed and we could take some food, from there. And 2 days before our escape, on that way where we had to leave the house, the city, there were some warehouses with some food and supplies, and Russian army bombed them and they took some food. People also took the food from there, by the way, and it was allowed. And when we were leaving the city, Russian army, Russian soldiers, they were really polite. They wished us good luck. They wished us good way. And they even gave us chocolates from that warehouses that they bombed, you know. And like 4 chocolates was the cost of my previous life. Everything that I had to leave, and everything that I don't have now, it was 4 chocolates for them. We were happy because we escaped, and now I know that some of our friends, some people who I know, they also tried to escape that day. And I know a family. There was a husband and a wife, a child, and the mother of a wife. And Russian army took a husband and a wife. They let the granny and the child free, and these people are in Mangush now, but nobody knows where is the husband and the wife. It's like 4 days, maybe, or 5, I don't remember. Another family who I know, they are in Berdansk now, and it's the mother with 2 children. One of them is 1 or 2 years old, and their father was also taken by Russian soldiers. But they allowed him to call them. He's in Donetsk right now. He was in Donetsk. After that, we were lucky because everybody helped. You know, during the road, everybody helped. I mean, people. At first night we spent in Tokmak, and there were people, volunteers who organized the places for everybody, and we were taken to the family. We even had a shower, you know, once for these days, and they even washed our clothes. So it was very cool. The next day we came to Zaporizhia. In Zaporizhia, we saw our soldiers, and you know, and when I saw our Ukrainian army, I understood that I can breathe. I could really breathe then. We spent the night in Zaporizhia. I have some relatives in there. Then we took a train. It was like train organized by our government, free train took us to some safe place. We went to Kovel. And my friend, who is a colleague, Lana, she's sitting right here, and she just called me and offered her help. She just told, like, I'm in Poland, come here. And I said, okay. And while we were going, she posted the post on Facebook telling that we need some help to come to Poland. And you know, 2 guys from Poland, nobody knows them. 2 guys from Poland, they just took their car, came to Kovel and took us and brought us here to Katowice. It's like just for free, just because they wanted to help. Other people let us to live in their flat. Other people gave us some food and clothes, and it's like people here are really helping. And you see, everybody is worrying about you. And when you're here, you understand that it's like, you know, Ukraine, it's standing between 2 countries, Poland, the phenomenon of kindness, and Russia, the phenomenon of evil. I don't know, maybe I forgot to tell something, but I believe it's the whole story, maybe not whole, but I just want to tell you that my city, we had like approximately 500,000 people living, and only 20% could escape. There are more people, a lot of people who are there, and they don't know what to do. They don't they don't have any food, they don't have any help, they don't have any water, and nobody could help them because Russia took the city in the circle, and this aviation, it continue working, you know, it continues working, and people are dying in there right now. We don't have our flats, we don't even think about that, but some of my friends, I just looking on Viber, you know, and I see that they were online on the 2nd of March, and it means that both variants, either they are dead or they are in Mariupol, not knowing what to do. And I just want to say that people in Mariupol really need help. They really need help, and I don't know what kind of help can it be, because Russian soldiers, they don't allow anybody to come in the city and to take their relatives. I think that's it.
Thank you, Marina. That was very, very difficult. I understand. And we hear about Mariupol a lot right now. And I just wanted to tell you, not just Marina, but all of you, that the whole world is watching. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody is trying to help and thinking of Ukraine and trying to figure out what we can do to help Ukraine. We have organized donations, foundations. We are sending humanitarian support, medications, food. I personally have seen mountains of diapers last weekend that we're sending to Kiev right now to people who have children. The problem is getting the help there. The problem with logistics and just getting it to the places that need it the most. There is a very difficult situation in Mariupol, and at this point, we don't know how to get help there.
Yeah, we know that. I mean, we know that Ukraine tried to organize this humanitarian help a lot, and the Russian army doesn't allow that. And as I don't remember, Galina said maybe that she wants to live in Ukraine and to be useful in Ukraine. You know, I'm here in Poland, but to be honest, I want to come back somewhere in Ukraine. I want to live in my country. I love my country, and I don't really know whether I will have such an opportunity in the future. And to be honest, we don't know what to do in the future at all.
I sincerely believe that you all will have that opportunity and that Ukraine will be rebuilt once this is over. I sincerely believe that the world is going to help Ukraine, and because everybody is on your side, everybody is on Ukraine's side. It's clear that once the war is over, Ukraine is going to be in good shape. It's just very difficult right now. I wanted to open this section to the questions that Christina or Rochelle might have. Would you like to start with your questions now?
Sure. Thank you all so much for telling your stories. I mean, you all spoke in such great detail, and I know it's not easy to talk about it all. I don't really have any follow-up questions specific to your stories, but a general question that I'm certain other reporters on this conversation will need as well. And it's awkward to ask, and I don't mean to be exploitative, but any pictures or videos or anything of your lives that you would feel comfortable sharing with us to help us tell your stories as best we can would be really helpful. And so Tatiana, I'm not sure if you can help us kind of organize how we could get that to us.
I got a lot of pictures taken by me personally, and I could just provide these pictures, and by my neighbors, especially that wave of the evacuation when we were there. My neighbor just took pictures. She was very brave because phones were forbidden and the Russians just took away all the phones. And when I called to the volunteer and she said, hide your phones anywhere, just in your laundry somewhere, because they take away and they break the phones, your phones, and they take away the telephone cards. But my neighbor just managed to take pictures, videos somehow on the way of that evacuation. And besides, there are a lot of pictures of the flats that burned down in the area where we were staying.
Mm-hmm.
I had to delete all the pictures that I had in my phone. I had to delete all the messages because I was scared, because Russian army really checked them, and my patriotic opinion was not something that they will like. So I deleted everything, but I have some pictures from Instagram from others people, and I recognize those places. So of course I can provide you with them, because I know that it's not fake. I know these places and I saw them by myself. So of course I can provide you with them.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to do that. Tatiana, do you want them to just send them to you and you can forward them to us?
Yeah, I think we could, me and Svetlana could talk about it. We'll get all the materials that we could, and I will forward it to you.
Okay. Is it possible? We were hoping, obviously we're on very different time zones right now. It's only 4:30 in the afternoon here, and we were hoping to show your stories tonight. Is it possible to pull that off, do you think?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Rochelle, do you have questions?
No, like all the questions that I had was answered by everyone's story. So yeah, thank you so much.
Could I just add something? Because you should understand now that Bucha is occupied by the Russians completely. There are some elder people who haven't managed to escape Bucha, because later we were on the very first day, it seems to me, to leave Bucha, and there later. And I wanted to add that according to the information that we got from the volunteer, the Russians hadn't allowed 50 buses to go to Bucha and pick up the civilians, to evacuate them on the very first day, on the 9th of March. And on the Ukrainian side, though it was announced on the radio that Vereshchuk just announced that there was a green corridor. In fact, there wasn't any green corridor, and there were shootings. And only on this 10th of March, they just allowed to 30 buses, it seems to me. And later they just drop in our houses. They are stealing all our properties. Though there is no electricity, according to my neighbors' information, though there is no electricity, they open our doors using special equipment. They use electrical generators and turn on special electric equipment, and they cut out the doors and steal and everything. And they are just living there in our flats now, and they are destroying everything that we have there. Yes, that's it.
You know, I also had a call today from my neighbor who escaped, and she also told me that somebody is living in my flat. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I believe her.
Mm-hmm. Because I got that information from the person who stayed there. She is feeding my cat, because unfortunately I couldn't take my cat with me because I was because I was a driver, and the car was unfamiliar to me, and I didn't even know how to, because it was Opel, and there was half automatic transmission, and I was afraid of this car, really, and I left my cat with the woman, and we got that information from that woman, that who is staying there.
And
Yes.
you know, also something, I'm sorry for interrupting you, something that I forgot to tell. Now I know that there are a lot of people from Mariupol who could escape from the city, but they don't have any petrol, and they are staying in the villages close to the city. They have connections, so they can call, but they can't go further because they don't have any petrol and they don't have any opportunity to get it. So they are trying to escape, but it's impossible for them. And of course, they are afraid that Russian army will begin shooting not only the city, but the villages as well.
And I want to add something more. They didn't let, that's what I know from the first resource, from the first-hand resource, that they didn't let our people bury their families, their relatives. And women from Vorzel, for example, the next village to Bucha, they dig they just buried their husbands, their relatives, barehanded in their gardens, in the yards of their houses. Yes, and there were a lot of, and besides what we were afraid of while sitting in the cellar, we had the information that in Gostomel suffered a lot. It was, they say that there were a lot of Kadyrov troops there, and they are still there. And they are very evil, they are very cruel. And they captured the civilians who were sitting in the cellar. Как будет заложники? I just forgot this word. Help me.
Captive.
Как?
He was kept captive.
Yes, they kept them like their victims,
hostages.
yes.
Hostages, yes.
Hostages. They just kept them like hostages. And besides what we know, what we do know for sure, there were some people trying to escape. They were just individual cars, and they shot them. And one of the case, it happened to a family of 2 or 4. The father was killed immediately in this town center of Bucha, and the daughter, she was wounded, and there was a bullet in her left hand, it seems to me, and they couldn't get through the hospital, and she stayed with that bullet for a long time, and later she was amputated or amputирована. Yes, she got her left hand amputated. She is 9 only, and her mother was wounded also. And besides, we couldn't get to the hospital. There was a pregnant woman at 39th week in our cellar, and we tried the parental center in Vorzel, next village to us, and that's the main parental center in our region. It was bombed down, they say, and it was impossible just to get through there. And her husband tried to get through to our hospital, but the problem was that our city is divided into 2 parts by the highway, and all the main fights were on this road. There were a lot of tanks, and yes, and just on some day when it was not that noisy, they tried to get, and she gave birth to a boy on the 10th of March, but still it was very, and with us there was a boy of 8 months too. He had no nutrition for some time, and it was like that. Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that information. I also wanted to mention, and maybe this information might be useful to some. I have a friend who is a doctor who delivers babies, and she's been delivering babies over the phone in Ukraine. She's already delivered quite a few in the last 2 weeks. The babies are delivered in cellars, in basements, anywhere they can. And then after the deliveries, if they can be delivered to the children's hospital, they go there. I know Ahmadiyat is still open and does continue to take children even if they were born somewhere else. So if you know somebody who needs help, just let me know. I'll get her in touch. I actually have a question for Galina. How is the situation in Kyiv right now?
Here is much safer than in Bucha, of course, but every day we hear the sounds of explosion, but far from Kyiv. But I'm in center, and we hear the sounds from the suburbs of Kyiv, the far regions, the far districts of Kyiv. And today we are going to the shop, and there are lots of people in Kyiv, and there are lots of children, there are lots of cars, there are lots of military men with guns. But Kyiv is alive, absolutely. Of course, there are less people than usually, but we today even drink coffee in the cafe like in times before the war. Yes, it was something, something from another life here, really. But
which area are you in?
In the center. I wouldn't like to say where sharply. Okay, in the center. So the situation here is now safer than in Bucha, and that is happening in Mariupol is something really terrible. I was born in Mariupol, and it's my native city, and my heart is with Mariupol too, and it's something terrible.
Can I add something?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I was going to ask Lana, do you have would you like to tell your story as well?
Yeah, kind of a brief one. I was kind of lucky because, well, I live not very far from Gostomel Airport, and just on the second day of the war, like the first day when we learned that that there is actually war, we were like, yeah, okay, but it cannot be in Kyiv. It's just kind of impossible. It's somewhere. It cannot be here. It's, come on, it's the 21st century. Ukraine refuses to believe that. The very next morning, there was a missile. I was actually drinking coffee. I opened the window, 6 a.m. I live on the ground floor. I opened the window just to, enjoy some fresh air. And all of a sudden, there was this like super loud, like, I've never heard anything. I'm just a civilian. I don't know what it was, but it was a super loud like sound, like whistling over. Like I had an idea it was right over my house, and then like while still there was the sound, I managed to scream to my kids, "Get out of bed! Rush to the bathroom!" So they rushed to the bathroom. There was the sound of explosion far away though. But we were sitting in the bathroom, kind of, shaking legs, trembling arms. Well, that was the point when my reptile brain told me run. So we packed, and we had to flee. My mom is still there, and my son is now living in my flat. He looks after my mom. It's a 10-minute distance, but it's not in the center. And like a couple of days ago, like there was a loud explosion, like also 5 kilometers, about 5 kilometers from them. And I know that they keep bombing the city. I don't know whose house is going to be next, and I'm just praying that it's not my mom. I know, like Marina said, yeah, it does sound egoistic, but I'm just thinking about, somebody I know. At the moment, they have enough food. They have water, electricity, internet, whatever. It's like, it seems it's okay. And I have been trying to ask my mom to, to move to Poland, but well, She's 80 years old, and it's kind of hard for her to, it's nearly impossible to survive the road. She's still kind of thinking about that, but let's see. I know lots of my friends. I don't know in what format there's going to be this program, how you're going to show the stories. There are lots of friends who stayed in Kiev by choice. They chose to stay and to help, to volunteer, to help organize any humanitarian help. Lots of my colleagues, also teachers of English, who I know personally from the conferences, and I now admire their work because instead of teaching children or, they do all the hard logistics. They evacuate children and they evacuate the whole families from, any flat in Kiev, and they bring them to the railway station, and, people are able to actually get to a safer place in the west of Ukraine. Talking about Mariupol, I'm just happy that, well, one of the reasons why I decided to flee is actually because my daughter, well, she's a recently adopted daughter. I only adopted her kind of less than a year ago. Actually, on the 2nd of April, I took her from Mariupol orphanage. She's 14 now, but when she was 7 in 2014, she was living in Kramatorsk, and she already experienced that war that just began in 2014. She can't remember a lot, but she does remember the moment when she was trying to escape with her granny. She was already an orphan back then, but she had a granny. So they were trying to escape from Kramatorsk, and they were on the bus. And the bus was, well, the Russians were shooting. Luckily, they survived. So later on, yeah. So anyway, so last year I took her from Mariupol orphanage, and like when the war began, like one of the thoughts that was in my head that no, she shouldn't live through this horror again. And like, so we fled quite fast. I mean, just on the 3rd day of the war, we decided to leave.
Yeah, that was a wise decision. I wouldn't want her to experience it again. That's very difficult for a child. One was way too much. All right. Thank you very much for all your stories, ladies. I just wanted to verify, are all of you English teachers? You all have very good English. Yeah? Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true. You all do have great English.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
Now
It was very helpful. Yeah.
Now I wish I could speak perfect German, to be honest. I wish I could.
That's true.
My children, they're teenagers, and now they have to choose their profession, what to do, because it's time for them to study. And we have no place to come back. And I'm trying to help them here in Germany. And I understand that it's very difficult. And for them, we will start, because I left a lot of meters in Bucha, and on the day, like Marina said, that there were days when I was ready to die, and I asked just God to die in one shot and don't die under the house and not to suffer for long. Then there appeared willing of surviving, and I wanted to survive. I was eager to survive, and I just was living the flats, everything that our business. We have a language school, and now we are having nothing actually, but we have survived, and we will try our best. Yes, to yes.
To everybody.
You are survivors, and you are heroes in our books, and I hope we can help you in any way we can. Thank you so much for your stories. Hopefully we'll meet again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for organizing this meeting. I believe it's very important that the world, hears not just the politicians, but ordinary people and the stories of ordinary people who survived, who lived through, horrible, horrible stuff. And I hope that the world will become kind of more decisive in terms of helping Ukraine, not only with humanitarian help, but also trying to protect the people here, because, well, we know that it's the politics and the politician's choice, but yeah, we know that Ukraine will remain on the map of the world, but the cost is too high.
It is. It is.
Thank you all so much. Tatiana, should
very
we
much.
just expect to hear from you regarding the link and everything? After
Yes, I will send you all the information. Lana, please contact me
Yeah,
afterwards.
sure,
All right.
sure.
All right.
Yeah.
My heart
Thank
goes
you.
out to you. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.